Desire and attachment. The subject of my discourse today will be intuitional science as described in the Krishna Yajurveda. The perceptible world is constructed with the cooperation of five fundamental elements. Ether, Vyoma, is the subtlest of these five elements, due to its extreme subtleness. The Vyoma Tattva is able to prove its existence only through its sound tanmatra. In order to understand this Vyoma Tattva, or its sound waves, or its sound radiation, a special type of scientific instrument is necessary. Except this Vyoma Tattva, the remaining four elements you can easily make out with the help of your crude organs. The Supreme Consciousness or Purusha, however, is subtler than all the five elements. How can the senses apprehend this conscious entity when they cannot easily catch the subtle Vyoma Tattva? The consciousness of Purusha entity is beyond the scope of mental or supramental sphere, for the object of the mental or supramental sphere is matter. The five elements or their semblances. That is why you are unable to reach the Paramapurusha, or the cosmic consciousness with the help of your mind. Your mind will have to come back disappointed repeatedly if it tries to reach him, for he is beyond the reach of your imaginative power. You cannot get to him through any common knowledge. Yama said, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Anandam Brahmano vidvam na vibeti kuta shana. The attainment of Brahma is possible through your mind, nor is not possible through your mind, nor is it feasible through words. Frustration awaits both of them, if they are employed to attain him. With the establishment in the Brahmic bliss, mind, intellect, words all get lost, for he is the self-same happiness, the bliss absolute. One has to be established in him through the exultant force of one's consciousness. After reaching him, mind being non-existent, the six enemies, lust, anger, avarice, delusion, pride, and envy, also cannot remain there. Sarka then becomes free from all fears. Tandur darsha gudamanu pravishtam guha hitam gavarish Daram Puranam Adhyatma Yoga Digamena Devam Matva Diro Harsha Shoka Yati. The Supreme Consciousness is unseeable, i.e., he is not perceptible by the sight organ. One cannot apprehend, nor can one understand, an extremely vast and extremely subtle thing through one's organs. Molecules and atoms are not apprehensible to man's organs due to their being too subtle. In order to see them or understand them, one has to take the help of scientific instruments. Similarly, the Supreme Consciousness is not visible. He is, however, not invisible. That is to say, one has to take pains to see him, quote, see him. Just as intellectual and scientific vision is necessary for seeing molecules and atoms, similarly, spiritual vision is necessary for seeing the Supreme Brahma, i.e., he is attainable only through spiritual knowledge. Hence, in order to attain him, you have got to do upavasa, which means worship. The word Gudha means deep. He is deep. With superficial sentiment or thought, it is impossible for you to know him. To know him, you have to go deep inside. You will have to be introspective. External sight will not do. The one that you see as an ordinary man by your external sight is actually a conscious entity. If you see him with your internal sight, the one that you see to be an animal or an inanimate object by your superficial sight is really a sentient entity. If you apply your internal sight That is why I say in order to see him, one has to go deep into the seen object. He is deep, very deep, and it is due to this intrinsicality that he abides in all the entities in an immutable form. While going to see him in this state of supreme unicity, all distinctions of superficial objects thin away into air. In reality, the first and the last word of spiritual sadhana is to see the synthesis of many in one, in a single form. Physics is characteristically analytical, so the investigation or research on matter is carried out externally, but in the sphere of investigation and intuitive comprehension of what is characteristically unific or synthetic, there is no other alternative than to take recourse to introspection. This Purusha entity is inherent and permanent in all objects, and so to quote see him, one has got to establish oneself in the subtlest of the subtle, deepest of the deep sphere. He abides in the innermost recess of the fundamental intellect as its supreme knower. He is the vital entity of that cavity, that sense of ego which is within you, and that is why he has been called cavern, Guha Hita. In order to know him, you will have to proceed in a straight and simple way into the inner realm, making your thoughts subtler and yet subtler. When one attains intuitional knowledge, all one's troubles and woes disappear. Do you know why? Mind is the perceiver of pleasure and pain, but Brahma is even above the supramental stage. In order to attain him, you have got to outstep the limit of your mind, and along with it, you will have to leave behind all the pleasurable and sufferable younks of your distorted mind. He is ancient, he is beyond the scope of time. To him the spatial, temporal, and personal reputations are of no value, for each of these is a particular manifestation of the mind. You cannot possess him through your worldly erudition, or by the stamp of your degrees and diplomas, for all worldly knowledge is subject to time, space, and person. Being spontaneous or self-manifest in spiritualism, he is not dependent on any second worldly entity. To achieve that Brahma, who is the supreme goal of spirituality, one has to take recourse to spiritual sacrifice, sadhana, not with the eyes of others, not with the spectacles of others. You will quote see him within you with your own quote eyes. You will move inward, not on any other vehicle, but by virtue of your own inspirational propulsion. A calm and collected individual, who is a genuine spiritual aspirant, attains Brahma in this very manner, and with the attainment of Brahma, one goes beyond the reach of pleasure and pain. One does not have those mental distortions like pleasure and pain. He attains a state which is called the state of supreme bliss. Itta shrutva sampari kriya matyaha pravriya dharma manumitamapya samudate mudaniyam hilatva vivritta sadma nashikita shamanye. What is the result of learning this intuitional science from a competent preceptor? By dint of this intuitional science, man learns to understand thoroughly what is temporal and what is eternal. The scriptures call this power of understanding the eterno-temporal discrimination, nitya nitya vivekya. You will accept only the eternal and shun the temporal. It is on the strength of this intuitional science that man knows what is mortal and what is immortal, i.e., who or which is liable to destruction, and who or which is established in indestructibility. With the help of this Nitya Nitya Vivekya, this discriminating judgment about mortality and immortality, man pursues the path of virtue. What is the dharma or the characteristic of the living beings? It is the endeavor to attain happiness. Why does a living being crave for happiness? For self-preservation. Why do you eat and drink? To keep yourself alive, to attain happiness. From this you very well understand this too, that to love whatever little is lost within your present entity, whatever is its essence, is your Dharma. This Dharma or sadhana teaches you to keep your subtlest self aloof from all transitory objects, as the result of which your eternal self gets healthy and nourishment, gets more and more developed on the path of progress. That is why this true sadhana of the self is defined in the scriptures as the path of nourishment, Pushti Marga. He who does not understand or recognize this true dharma or characteristic verily regards the body as the sole factor. I don't criticize those mentally undeveloped creatures who regard their bodies as the summum bonum of their lives, but for human beings to entertain such thoughts is nothing short of paying the mind a left-handed compliment. The funniest part of it is that such a person flouts the mind with the mind. A display of such a perverse mentality we come across in their Charvakya philosophy. To them the transitory body is the supreme entity. The materialists are reluctant to give any importance to the mind in their philosophy. Not only that, they very often even hesitate to clearly admit mind's apperception or self-consciousness. Yet these materialists sometimes want to publicize themselves as pragmatists or behaviorists. They want to say that they will not tread the path of logic and reasoning, for in that path people, quote, make a day of night and night of day. We are simple, toiling folk. We want to pass our days in peace, with food to eat and clothes to wear. And behind this simple demand to supportology, parenthesis, exclamation point, or practicology, parenthesis, exclamation point, that exists is our philosophy. Even by making such observation, they get caught in their own net. In the practical field, the utility of things is determined by the mind. The feasibility of the codes of procedure and conduct is also determined by the mind. To live in peace with food to eat and clothes to wear, to live in peace with food to eat and clothes to wear, is also done for the satisfaction of mind, and above all, no matter what logi or ism is propounded, the supporting doctrine, the supportology, must depend on imaginativeness, mental sanction. Every mental disease or every spiritual disease is not Mayavada or illusionism. Even by keeping contact between the earthly world and the human mind, spiritual philosophy can be established. Ananda Marga is a philosophy of this type. Some of those that are comparatively imaginative regard Kamamaya Kosha or the crude mind as the Ru or soul. Some identify the astral minds like Atimanasa, Vijnanamaya and Hiranmaya Koshas with it, but the real preceptor, possessed of the knowledge of the divine truth, from whom you will learn the Brahmic or intuitional knowledge, will make you understand that the soul is a lot subtler than these koshas or shells of the mind, each of which is mutable and so evanescent or transitory. The soul alone is eternal, so the happiness that you will get in the worship of the spiritual knowledge will be permanent happiness. That is why it is called Ananda, or divine bliss. Ananda is not to be had from transitory objects. The transitory or temporal objects will come and go. Sometimes they will make you laugh, and sometimes they will make you cry. No matter how endearing the temporal things be, one day they will surely and undoubtedly leave you in the lurch and abjectly beggarly. But he will not make you wail. He is an eternal, non-evolutive, immutable entity. The Yama said, O Nashiketa, the broad gateway to the realm of God lies open before you. One who has acquired a thorough knowledge of mortal objects has verily acquired the knowledge of both the perishable and the imperishable ones. With the development of mental faculties, as one proceeds from the transient happiness to permanent happiness or ananda, one gets more and more inclined towards his mental happiness in preference to the physical joy. For the love of country or many such subtle happiness, a person makes no bones to lay down his life, These are actually the signs of preponderance of the human mind. The happiness of cats and dogs is purely physical. In such receptacles as their mental happiness cannot have the priority. Beat them and then call them to eat some delectable food, they will come running after it. But human beings are reluctant to stand the least dishonor or any little blow to their mind. A person who serves you under circumstantial pressure and keeps your mind constantly humored by his sycophancy is actually at heart not very pleased with you. He constantly tries to escape the bondage of slavery. You cannot conquer human mind through circumstantial pressure. Through Ashtanga Yoga, a slave down in the Ananda Marga, a sadhaka, conscious of his, her body and self, can gradually awaken the dormant mental power, and with the help of this developed mind, she can eventually establish himself, herself in spiritual self. In this city, in this characteristic self, she get, he/she gets real Ananda. So I say, learn the intuitional knowledge from a proper preceptor. You cannot learn this through empirical knowledge. Intuitional knowledge cannot be gained from books. For this one has to go to a preceptor with devotion and reverence. Try to awaken your latent devotional sentiment. It will come to you, if you so wish. Once the devotion is awakened, you shall get divine mercy without doubt. Mahad Kripaya Eva Bhagavad Kripa Lishadva Narada Bhakti Sutra. With the attainment of only a wee bit of divine grace, the ego starts disappearing from the crude human body. The Nitya Nitya Viveka gets awakened, and this discriminating judgment establishes the sadhaka in the Brahmic consciousness. Remember, in the path of meditation, devotion is the paramount factor. Wherever there is devotion, God's mercy is there. It has got to be. Physical attachments are very difficult to give up. They die hard. Preservation of the crude body and attachment to the body are not one and the same thing. But where the preservation of the body is not jeopardized or does not stand in danger, even then people are surprisingly attached to their physical body. At the time of an earthquake, a mother runs out of the house, leaving her sleeping child in bed, and then halfway down, when the thought of the child arises in her mind, she runs back again to save her child. The quicker the mother's resemblance of her child, the less her attraction for her own body. A mother who is above such attraction will think of her child first and take it away along with her. Through proper sadhana alone, one is able to conquer such bodily and all sorts of attachments. All bondages of senses, attractions of those that have been able to awaken their subtle selves through Anandamarga Ashtangika sadhana are bound to be resolved. Anyatra dharma danyatra smat kritat anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha tyatat pashyasi tadvara. What is supreme or Parama Brahma? How does it look like? This you cannot know through the so-called ritualistic religion. Shraddha Kriya, or post-obit ceremonies and rituals for the souls of the dead. Shanti Kriya, or ceremonious propitiation of deities and evil planets. Ceremonial fasts, sacrificial fire or oblation, yagya, and various other social and popular extroversive ritualistic functions and ceremonies with flowers, bilva, patra, aigel folia, water of the Ganges, etc. None of these can attain you, Brahma, for these ceremonies are external and showy. How can you reach the life of your life, the soul of your soul, with these showy and superficial paraphernalia? Three entities eventually emerge. Wherever these rituals take place, religious ceremony, the fruits or rewards of such a religious ceremony, and persons who organize religious ceremony for the sake of crude external material gains, the authors of these so-called religious ceremonies perform these rituals. Really speaking, the word dharma should not be associated with these ceremonies. Dharma is the spiritual meditation that the sadhaka does for the attainment of Saguna Brahma, the source of infinite bliss. And how about Nirguna Brahma? Although I cannot but call the effort for the attainment of Nirguna Brahma also Dharma in the popular language, yet he is actually not comfortable to Dharma? Then is he comfortable to adharma, the negation of Dharma? No, he is not that too. He does not come under any of the two categories. Dharma and adharma are both attributive, subjectivated and objectivated sentiments. All attributive sentiments fall within the scope of mind, fall in the net of causality. Nirguna Brahma is beyond the ambit of causality. He is above Dharma and Adharma. He is none of whatever had ever been created, or of whatever have been or will be created. Each of these is the objectivated manifestation of Saguna Brahma, but in Nirguna Brahma exists neither antecedence or impedance, neither gain nor loss, sanyacha in Sanskrit, upachaya in Sanskrit, nor accumulation either. There is no question of creation of the third as the result of the union of the two, upacha. Nachiketa prays to Yama, O Lord of Death, I want to get established in the Nirguna Brahma, who is beyond all attributes, beyond to be and not to be. Please tell me something about him. Yama replies, Sarve Vedayat Padama Mananti Tapamsi Sarvani Ya Yadvadanti Yadishantu Brahma Sharya In Sharanti Tate Padam Samgrahena Vravimyo Mityetat. In every Veda, the position which hath been the supreme factor of contemplation, for the realization of which the ascetics take to meditation, for the attainment of which the brahmacharis, those who remain in constant cosmic ideation, take the vow of brahmacharya, the act of a brahmachari. In reference to that super exalted position, I pronounce to you the word Omkara, which stands for it, Tasya Vashaka Pranavaha. Really speaking, there is no word in the language like Omkara, more suitable to the explanation of Brahma, for the state of Nirguna is inexplicable. Although one may try to explain the state of Saguna, yet there is no feasible way other than the use of Omkara to explain his initial expression. Indeed, there is no other choice. Omkara as a term of expression is a wonderful unifying link between Nirguna and Saguna Brahma. In the written language, only a dot is used for Nirguna Brahman. Om is used for the sonic manifestation of Saguna Brahma, and the phonic sign, Bengali crescent symbol, is symbolic of the expression which is just about to take place. Ita Divaksharam Brahma Ita Divaksharam Param Ita Divaksharam Janatva Yoga Dichati Tasyatat. This Omkara is the first expression of the Brahmic glory, and that is why it is known as the sound Brahma. It occupies the topmost position, for the ultimate cause of creation, preservation and destruction is inherent in its three lessers, viz. U, Ma. One who has known and heard these Omkara, echoing in the vast sky as the macrosonic phenomenon, and the mental sky as the microsonic one, has indeed caught the very essence of essences right in the palm of one's hand. Here one should bear in mind that when Omkara stands for sound, to know it then is to hear or pronounce it. When Omkara is pronounced or sounded in the Brahmic mind itself, it is then meaningless for the sadhaka to pronounce it during his meditation of Omkara. The sadhana of Omkara means the endeavor to hear that sound. That is why in Ananda Marga, Omkara is not a mantra, an incantation or invocation for chanting, but for hearing or surrendering to this Omkara, which is the direct concomitant of the Brahmic nucleus. The Purushottama is to attain him, and attain him means there is nothing else to be desired. Collectively or individually, he is everything, nothing is outside him. He who seeks him is really wise, for attaining him means attaining all. Incidentally, there is a beautiful story in the Ramayana. Once Rama and Lakshmana were sailing in a boat towards Mithila across the Ganges. So far as the story goes, the boat turned into gold with touch of Rama's feet. When the boat reached the other end of the bank, The wife of the boatman came to know about this miracle. Down she brought all the woods and timbers from the house and started turning them into gold by bringing them into contact with Rama's feet. Noticing the foolishness of his wife, the boatman counseled her, "Look here, how long are you going to toil like this? Act wisely. Take refuge under those feet, which have such miraculous power. If you do so, you will be able to turn any worldly object into gold at will." Taking his refuge means merging one's egoistic vanity in him. The attainment of Brahma is difficult for those who want to work out the profit and loss of what shall I get out of this attainment. If a person, while trying to surrender him herself to him, is conscious of his her petty ego's profit and loss, then how can he/she dedicate his/her petty ego to him? His worm-eaten mental flower shall be worthy for worshipping the Lord. Shall not be worthy for worshipping the Lord. Entertaining no desire for senses happiness, a man has to surrender oneself to the waves of the inscrutable supreme fountainhead, Brahma. This total dedication, this self-surrender, is the sentiment of Sri Radha, the personified love sublime, her soul world. Gopigan kareya be Krishna darshan sukha vansha nahi sukh pai kotigun gopi darshane krishnarye ananda hai tadapeksha kotigun gopi asvadaya shaitanya charitamrita. Endless joy, unsought for lies, when Krishna's sight fills Gopi's eyes, the sight of milkmaids, Krishna's joy, multifold more do they enjoy.